what's that meme about? Like, there's a movie or a show. Oh, was it Tarzan? That just had the most ridiculous OST. And I think who did the music for Tarzan? Was it not the musical?
Oh yeah, Phil Collins.
Yeah, it was Phil Collins.
Yeah.
Like just went hard for no
just
reason.
like that meme of someone like the piano's on fire and then it's like playing it. It's like for no reason.
Welcome to New Game Plus. This is a retro gaming podcast where three guys spend 7 days playing one old game and then we talk about it. My name's Dustin.
My name is Kenny.
Nolan.
And this is episode 436. And the question of the week is, what game do you wish could be removed from the retro master list?
There's probably a lot of them.
Yeah.
More than
A
half
lot
would
of
be good
them.
to go.
More than half.
Just
Yes.
cut it
No,
without
you're way
looking
too
too.
picky.
Just a
If
clean
you-
cut.
That'd be
If you
nice.
want more than half.
Well, give me one.
Okay. No, I'm gonna give you two, but
Okay,
I'll
give me
give you.
two.
Great.
Okay, on principle alone, or anyone who has been a longtime listener of the show understands, and so I'm gonna refuse to elaborate. But E.T. the extraterrestrial digital companion.
Why? You're scared it's going to be really good?
Strike it.
PlayStation
What
3
is that?
graphics?
Strike it from the retro master list. I refuse to elaborate.
You don't like PS3
Here's one I also would like to remove, and I will elaborate. There is a game, I think an NES title on there called Dudes with Attitudes.
Oh, you just don't like that
And
title.
that is the worst game title I've maybe ever heard.
please.
I cringe a little just saying it, and I think it should absolutely get cut.
Is Dudes with Tudes better for you?
Yeah, that would be better.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
A little.
Is it
No, that would be way better.
Is it a game just about us three?
Someone made a game about us.
Autobiographical NGP.
It's actually, and some
Cart.
people would probably know what it is because that is a duo tag team group from the World Wrestling Federation. It was Kevin
Oh,
Nash
it's a
and Shawn
wrestling
Michaels.
game. That makes sense. And in the time, I don't think that was probably quite as like uncomfortable
I don't
to
know.
say as it is now. But it just that title has aged. It should go.
No.
Here's one for you. Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie.
Yeah, now that's the worst title, actually.
That's actually
that's
the title
name
of the
Yes.
game.
of the game.
Yes. Yes, Ken.
And
Okay.
I just know it'll be a waste of time. So
that'll be bad.
again, like Kenny said, hundreds. The list
Peter
would be hundreds.
Jackson,
for me,
though.
but, yeah, but
And
he
King Kong
didn't have
can
anything
make
to
for
do
a
with,
fun type of game
Sure.
play.
He didn't have anything to do with the game. Anime rings
He
a
didn't make it. He's got the world's biggest computer, and he's up there programming a game about himself.
Yeah, so that's my one pick, even though there's several. I don't know.
I've got a series that we could
great.
eliminate.
Oh wait, you're gonna
Grand
say
Theft Auto?
something mad. That's gonna make me mad.
I'm going to say something that we're all going to firmly agree on.
Okay.
There are 5 Twisted Metal games on the Retro Master.
Oh yeah.
And I know that's probably the
No.
best iteration of vehicular combat, but we don't want to do it.
I don't want to play another Twisted Metal game
I-
ever in my life.
I wouldn't mind whichever is the best one ever. I wouldn't mind leaving it on there, playing one last one, and then putting them to bed forever. But yeah, vehicular combat can go.
Hey,
I've
we
got-
should add another tier to Patreon that's like you can remove a game.
Ooh.
Dude.
Okay. Look,
too strong.
we don't have that
Yeah.
yet, but who knows?
OP.
Maybe one day we will allow you the power to remove games from the Retro Master List. We've still got some tricks up our sleeves. Like in our Retro Game of the Week, Plok.
Overview.
Plok is a 1993 platformer for the Super Nintendo. We're already laughing because I'm trying to not explode with the P into the microphone because
Explode with
when-
the P. Period.
when you say certain words into a microphone, there are plosives that pop
Quit mansplaining.
the microphone.
And we are professionals.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're just going to skip the
Lock.
hard P's in this episode. So Plok is a 1993 Super Nintendo platformer, and it's like in the vein of those mascot-driven
Yeah.
platformers that were happening in and around this time.
There was an era when everybody wanted the next big IP, and they were dropping these platformers left, right, center, and above and
So
below.
you have Sonic, you've got Mario, and you've got
Just name the two
this
biggest.
idiot.
No, and then you had a lot, right?
You had
but
a
then
lot,
you had
yeah.
some that weren't a part of an IP already. So you have like Gex the Gecko. You
Yeah.
had Spyro the Dragon at the time. You had Crash Bandicoot. Obviously, those were a little bit later. But you even had the 7-Up, wasn't it? Made the game
Yeah.
with the little
The
red
spot,
dot.
the
Yes.
spot guy.
Yeah.
Cool spot.
So
Cool spot.
You've got a lot that were doing it in and around the time, and they created a character trying to hop into the market here. Who created the character? Software Creations were the developers, and the publishers were different depending on which country it came out in. Activision for Japan, Trade West for North America, Nintendo in Europe.
In fairness, the early iterations of this game, when they were sort of first developing the concept, were made to be, I think, an arcade, like mid-90s. It was going to be a coin-operated arcade game for like a specific board. But so the concept kind of predated the influx of a bunch of these types of character games.
Yes.
But it didn't get shipped until sort of right in the middle when everybody was doing this at the same time.
Well, and to clarify, it was a totally different game.
Sure, it
like back
developed
then.
a lot over the time, became very different than Flea Pit or whatever it was going to be in the early iterations.
They kept the fleas, though.
They did keep the
We
fleas.
must have the fleas. It's a non-negotiable.
I'm putting my foot down on that one. We can change some other things. Which this is one thing I found interesting here, super interesting, because you don't get this combination of things ever, much less often. This was a British studio. I don't know how many games we played from a British studio. First of all.
Like two others, maybe.
Well, they made Ghouls and Ghosts.
Well, secondly, sure.
Just Britain did.
No, this developer.
Secondly, you're saying this developer, an interesting thing is that the designers behind this game are two brothers. They're known as the Pickford brothers because their last names, is Pickford. They were the designers of this game. They were also the designers of a couple of Wizard and Warriors sequels. I believe they were the designers behind Maximum Carnage, that weird, hard Spider-Man game that we played.
For SNES.
Interesting.
And Genesis,
There were some other games there. That's not the only interesting thing, British brothers, but the composers of this game, and we'll talk about the music later, are brothers. It's a brother team.
Oh,
So,
the
like-
Folins.
Yeah. And we'll talk about them when we get there,
they
but
British?
like this was just a group of related people.
That's pretty funny. Yeah, that's a super rare thing in the gaming industry.
In Plok, well, okay, the manual is something you really needed to look through because it's just as absurd as the presentation of this game. What it says in the book when it's describing who is Plok, because you might be asking, what is Plok? I know Sonic the Hedgehog is a blue hedgehog. I know Mario the Plumber is a mustached plumber, mustachioed. But what is Plok? Plok, according to the manual, is an irresistible, irrepressible, unstoppable, highly improbable, and downright dangerous bundle of pure energy. The very next sentence is Plok does not like fleas.
No.
Okay.
He looks like...
Honestly, that describes this game so well.
I hate that it does, but I don't accept that. Ball of energy.
You have to.
He looks like something else.
The story here is that our character that we just mentioned is crazy about flags. But the weirdest thing is that his favorite flag has been stolen, and so he has to go on an adventure to find out who stole his flag, to put a stop to their dastardly deeds, and to retrieve his flag, return home, and continue on the legacy of his grandfather, who once was on the island.
They're doing too much with this one. Your favorite podcast has t-shirts now.
We've got two. One is Castlevania inspired, and the other is Portal inspired.
There are a limited amount of them,
Oh,
and they're
man.
really, really well done.
Yeah.
So you want to pick one up today if you haven't gotten yours yet.
ngppodcast.myshopify.com. Get yours while supplies last.
Gameplay.
We should just jump into the very first mechanic that's super unique and talk about it,
Let's jump in.
because it is interesting and kind of works here in a cartoon character, but the concept is a little bit morbid. He takes his limbs, they're removed from his body,
Take your
and
time.
he uses them as projectile weapons.
Yeah, I don't know why it's morbid. That's how this guy's
If
built.
you ripped off your
Yep.
arm and threw it at me,
Yep. But
that
guess,
would absolutely be morbid.
guess what I'm not?
A ball of energy.
A ball of energy.
All of irresistible,
With the ski mask on?
irrepressible.
Flea-hating energy.
Yeah, this guy.
You're not a cartoon.
what
You're correct.
It's not just a
different.
cartoon. What you don't know about Plok and his kind is that this is just a natural thing for
Stop.
them. It's like a lizard losing its tail. It's not morbid. They'll grow back.
But it has boomerang properties.
Yeah, that's what's crazy. Is that as soon as I started the first play, I was like, we just played
Power
this game.
Blade did it first. So
There are some weird similarities between this game and Power Blade. Not beyond surface level, but
Yeah, sure.
that mechanic is at the forefront of everything. So that's your weapons, but also they get creative with it later in the game and in most stages where it's integrated into some puzzle solving too.
because this is like a puzzle platformer.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
sort of. It's,
It's
a
just a
platformer
mess
with
is
some
what
sort
it
of
It's a
is.
puzzle
platform with
elements.
puzzles. Yeah.
Yeah, that. So yes, it's definitely unique. I don't know many games that where you throw part of yourself, but whatever, it's fine.
You have an overworld where you're going to a new level. I don't think you're able to like move back to previous levels, right? So this is kind of just dressing.
Right. It's just linear progression as far as I recall.
It's just for story, which there is a lot of story
Right.
here for a platformer, to be honest. Not in
There
depth,
is.
but
You don't
there's
want
a lot of
the story, but it's there.
there's a lot of story moments. And you're just moving progressively to the next stage where you're platforming. And I guess like a lot of platformers, there's some enemies in the way, but unlike a lot of platformers, this one is a lot more obstacle
heavy.
based.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminded me a little bit of like the Donkey Kong Country series as a platformer.
Hey.
Just
I
just
feel
in
that.
vibe. Not one to one, and it also
That's
had a
actually a great
little
comparison.
bit of like like PC platformer vibes to me as well. And
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I agree with
But
both
it-
of those things, Kenny. I think
those
that's
those
great.
were the things that kind of felt adjacent to this game for whatever reason.
Yeah, and you'll load up the game and not be lost. It's a platformer, and it follows many of the platforming conventions, especially at this time. So it's not like, it is weird, and they do strange things throughout, but it's still very playable in like the first approach to the game.
Yes. And I think that's key, though. First approach, because the first world of however many stages, 6, 8, is relatively basic platforming. You're avoiding obstacles, taking out a few enemies, getting to the end of the stage and raising the flag, realizing it's not your flag, it's your underpants or something crazy. But after that, the game, it doesn't drastically change, but it does fundamentally change.
The complexity sort of slowly ramps.
But even what you're doing, what the game is
even-
expecting you to do.
Absolutely, it does. It even pivots a little bit to kind of having
lot of
different goals.
Yeah,
And then continues to add more complexity throughout and more sort of new
also-
modes of play and increasing difficulty as you go on.
It's also one of the few games that introduces, I would say, a main mechanic, not immediately to you. Like later you discover,
Yeah.
like the, there's
Amulet or wasps?
amulet.
Yeah.
And so you can be like, it feels like a main mechanic in another game. I don't know the name of it, but where you have different suits and you get powers. Honestly, Kirby borrows from Kirby in the sense that you find these power-up suits that you briefly use in stages, but that's also later. And then, yeah, it's like kind of all over the place. I feel like they changed the rules as you continue to play the game.
Well, let me do this. One of the main rule changes or expectation shifts that the game does after the first world, where you're just simple platforming, the game then turns into an enemy eliminator, where rather than just getting to the end of the stage, you are having to seek out. I don't know if it's different per stages. Yes, I know what they are. You're not. I don't know if it changes per stage, but somewhere around 6, 7, 8 different fleas, enemies that are scattered throughout the stage. And so it becomes more of, like the last game that we played, Power Blade, more of like not just going from point A to point B, but exploring all throughout the stage to find and eliminate these enemies. Because once you do, then the flag finally moves all the way to the exit, and you're able to exit and beat the stage.
Yeah, so it's not just mechanics, it's rules that they start to change.
Yeah, it changes the game. I mean, it's still platforming and you're still avoiding obstacles and still fighting enemies, but it changes what you're doing. I mean, imagine Mario, like any of those being set up how it is right now, but then a couple worlds in, you're then having to explore the stage to take out enemies. It felt
strange,
odd.
Yeah,
it did. It was weird. And I think it works. I think their goal was to drive you towards that game mode. I think the early ones were sort of like, hey, we're going to learn. We're going to be a tutorial. We're going to sort of teach you what's going on. And from the look of this game, and maybe not the difficulty of it, but from the look of the game to the vibe of it, to the tone of the humor, this feels like it was trying to be a fairly kid-accessible game. It's not like super simple in how it plays, but there's a child-friendly play mode. Like when you go to your mode selection, there's a normal and there's like a child's play. And the character himself and the vibe and the look feels like that. So I think that may have been an intentional choice of like, we're learning and teaching you things as you go, and kind of now here's the game as we actually envision it. Regardless of why, though, it feels very odd to kind of take a pivot that's that large.
Child's play might be for kids, but your normal mode is for Dark Souls enthusiasts, because the game
but not even
the game is unfair. I
Absolutely.
guess let's just go to that.
Absolutely,
the game
it's unfair.
Is unfair. A few complaints related to the unfairness. You have a life bar, which is appreciated. But
who cares?
It does not matter, because the enemies from the very beginning to the very end are taking a quarter of it with each hit. So why not just give us 3 hits to death? Like, don't give us a health bar if everyone's going to take a chunk of your health every time anything hits you. That's one frustration. A second frustration is all of our frustrations, I would imagine. But the off-screen or instantaneous obstacles, we'll talk about log rolls in particular, but them coming out of nowhere incredibly fast and multiples of them, so that, and the logs roll uphill, Kenny. Like, that's got to bother you.
That's the way physics work.
That's not the way
in
physics
acrylic.
work.
What's the name of this world?
Yeah.
Something like
I
that.
don't know.
It's one
so
of
that's
one
two.
of
I'll give one more, and then
maybe this will be mine.
Say any. I actually just didn't like. I don't mind the game mode of exploration, seek out the enemy, eliminate the enemy. What I don't love about that is that, especially in a platformer, it kills the momentum. When you first find the fleas as an egg, you have to hit the egg 3 times to break the egg, and then the fleas come out of the egg that you have to hit 3 times to kill the flea. But in between those 3 hits, there's a crazy amount of iframes that you can't even hit the flea again.
That's kind of
during that
Dark
time.
Souls.
So
I'll give you that one.
it completely slows down the pace of the game, and it changes it fundamentally. And then I'll add one more that I didn't even intend to. When it turns it into an exploration rather than an A to B platformer, give us something worth exploring. I felt like it was not worth exploring this stage. I was it wasn't engaging or fun. There weren't new things to see for the most part. I didn't love the exploration component of the game, and I don't mind that as a concept.
There were points to be earned and shells to be had,
cares about
which
points?
your shells turn into lives, and if you
No, they
get
turn into
through-
Plok continues.
Plot continue.
No, the plot continues, or as you collect your letters.
You're right. I
Which
just
you
wanted-
do as you get through levels without getting hit, which is separate from the fact that your little guy has the bar that's being raised. I'm listing various things simply to show this game had a lot going on. What it felt like to me as a game is that they were wanting to do stuff, and there was no one in charge of like design or like the overall vision of the game
the
who was willing
brothers.
to say no.
Brothers Grimm.
Like every time someone suggested something, they were like, "Cool, we'll add that." Like, do we want to give him suits with some kind of interesting power-ups, but like we'll randomly put him in a present, and sometimes they'll be at helpful points, and sometimes they'll just be random. Sure, throw it in there. Do we want to give him like some vehicles that he can explore and do some kind of cool stuff with, and that'll be fun, but not until like
3
the second
hours.
half of this really long game, so that no one's even going to really know they're there until they get way into it, and it's kind of cool, but no one will know about it. Sure, yeah, put in vehicles. They just did everything.
Yeah.
Like this game was it was a lot.
Okay. So the so many things that I want to touch on. The log thing is garbage. Okay.
Never fun.
But not only that, like other things too, like the enemy movement, the flea movement, just a lot of gotcha stuff in this game for really no reason. Like you say it's for Dark Souls enthusiasts. I mean, not really. Like even in Dark Souls, they are at least, I don't know. It functions right. That's annoying. Big issue is the plot continue thing. What a horrible system. What a horrible
Rather
system.
than starting on the same stage, if you die or game
Yes.
over.
If you game over,
If you game
go to
over.
the
Game
last
over.
Continue.
You go to the last stage that you earned a Plok continue.
That's
or
your
Plok
checkpoint.
Continue. Yeah, that's your
Right.
checkpoint.
Which, awful.
It's nice
awful.
that those checkpoints can move forward, and so for a game without a save
Just add a save.
function,
We're on SNES.
it sort of gives you a way to do that.
We need to slow down and say that again. This is a pretty lengthy game for a platformer, and there's no save and there's no password system, meaning you have to play this entire
In a
game
sitting?
in one go
Stop.
without save states.
Stop it. It's
Okay,
SNES.
Okay.
I believe your larger boss
Yeah.
checkpoints, which are not plot continues, but are I believe if you actually reset the game, you do pick up the last boss, not at the very beginning.
How? There's no. I don't think they did any battery save here.
That's what I read to be true. I didn't experience that because I was,
If
playing
that's
through and
the
save
case-
stating, but that helps a little bit
That helps
if
a
that's
lot
the
of bit.
case.
If
But
that's
it's
the
also,
case.
they don't communicate that at any point, and so the first time you play the game,
Regardless,
you
though,
were
it's-
going, huh? Like, I've started over.
Yeah,
Just
it's
add a save. Okay.
It's another oddity for how they chose to give you the option to progress through the game.
The other thing
between
that I
all of
will
those
say
different
that
things.
I wanted more of that I think would have made this game make a lot more sense is going back to, I said Kirby, and I think I stand by it. You don't get it from enemies, but you do find the gifts and you get different power-ups. Like you turn into like a blunderbuss using Plok. There's a flamethrower.
There's a flamethrower.
one.
Yep, that one's fun.
And I really wanted more of that, like integration into the stage where like you get it, like it's not as hidden. Maybe it gets given to you earlier. And then like there's some puzzle solving to be done with that power up. It would make the exploration more fun that way instead of being like a temporary thing. So
What I wished is that it wouldn't be time controlled, but it
timed.
would be hit. So you keep
Like
it
Power
until
Blade?
you get hit.
yes, I agree.
Like because then you could because sometimes you weren't able to do much with it
No,
because it
'cause
was
I'm
literally
exploring.
Right.
there and gone before you got to do
Yeah.
anything.
Or you could have upgraded a specific limb. You know,
a big left foot or something.
like
Can
for
he-
real, where like your third hit becomes a really strong hit, but you can choose not to use it by only using your first two, and then pull it out when you need it. Like there could have been some interesting interactions there. I don't know how it would look, but there could be.
Kenny's right though, and not about that, but about the fact that these guys just put stuff in. The power up thing that we're asking more from felt literally just added. It's timed.
Yeah.
It has no purpose. He has a whole design and everything. It looks cool. It looks like
And
it
musical
matters.
theme for
and musical
that.
theme, and then
Right.
it's not. So
And you got other timed things too. You can grab the star power up, which doesn't change you, but puts stars in a circle around you, and doesn't give you the typical upgrades that you would normally get from a star power. But you get that star power by picking up a giant diamond. It all makes sense.
I never thought of it.
Also,
You get
that
a saw
speed
blade,
Yeah, that speed blade.
turns you into Sonic.
Huh?
But
It's pointless.
you can. I feel like you
pointless.
could only go downhill. There's something weird there. There was a stage I got to that like had 3 in a row, and you had to get over a gap, so you had to get one. But like 2 of them wouldn't project you far enough. So it didn't make sense.
The thing that I think they were on the right track with, though, if we're talking mechanics, let's pick one. The one that I think matters is going back to the limb thing. And not only that it's used as a weapon and boomerangs, but that when you
Oh yeah, we
are
gotta talk
out
about
of them, you don't have feet anymore. You're just the ball of energy, like
Which is
jumping
so
around,
funny
which
to
is
me.
great. Like,
It's
and
hilarious.
they do stuff with it,
Yeah.
with puzzles, and I think that is what the game focus should have been, and maybe a little more should be invested in that. But there are like these targets that you'll find throughout stages, and they will hold on to your limbs for a section of the stage so that you can solve it without limbs. That's not always how they do it, but sometimes it's just one arm that you have to throw there to like get a wall to move. But there's one stage where you don't have them, and you have to get around without your limbs, and
But you'll
Just
find
little
your
jumping
limbs.
potato.
You'll
find
find your
him
limbs later.
on
on
clothes
a
hangers.
hanger, on a clothes hanger.
Yeah.
It's just
That's so
lunacy.
funny to
But
me.
I did like that part of this game when
it's the puzzle component. Yeah.
the puzzle component. I just, I think they could have done more if they would have done less elsewhere, like with the other things we've been complaining about.
They did some other puzzle kinds of things with the layout of the world too, where you'd have to remove certain obstacles to then like grab another obstacle to get past it. There were lots of sort of, this doesn't seem like it looks deep, but when you think about the way that you have to move forward, you had to think about what you were doing or figure something out. And they scattered those throughout. They came in a lot of different flavors. I wish also that it was a little bit more cohesive or tightly packaged, but I appreciated that it wasn't just move from here to there, like without thinking and without really like interacting with your world in any meaningful kinds of ways. It was lots of stuff to deal with, maybe too much stuff to deal with, but it kept you engaged.
What did y'all think about the trash bosses?
Okay,
Yeah, I don't know.
I did not like the brothers. Not that made the
first
game
one?
or that developed the music, but that are the
Nice.
boss.
The
Those were
Bobbins
kind
brothers.
Yep.
yeah, those guys were kind of obnoxious.
Well,
The
if
way
you
they
didn't
moved,
if you didn't like fighting the 2 of them, then you would really hate fighting the 3 of them.
fighting the 3 of them was rough. But some of the other bosses I actually appreciated quite a bit. The bosses that float around in the sky and then you got to hit them with the little spiky
You liked
thing.
The
that one?
Pinkinos.
Yeah, the Pinkinos.
The
I thought
bullet
that
hell
was
one?
clever. Yeah, you had to dodge stuff and you had to move back and forth. Like that felt like a cool boss to me. I liked the spider boss.
I like the spider boss. That one
pretty
felt more
good.
like a Metroid boss.
Yeah, I actually thought the bosses were fairly decent, minus the brothers, which I thought were kind of garbage.
Just immediately jumping on you, and I eventually
spam.
got it down where they don't only move, but they will move if you hit them. So you kind of plan that, but they'll also move without. So like it throws it out the window. I don't know. I didn't
They
like any of
drop
the
on you.
bosses. And
Like-
they take so much hits to like
Yeah.
finally eliminate when you only take like 3. I don't know. I
Yeah.
didn't care for the bosses. There was a whole stage I think is worth pointing out. Sorry, a whole world where Plok falls asleep on the statue of his grandfather. And then you play through a world, so 6, 7, 8 stages, in sepia tones or black and white.
Right.
Yeah, like
As the
silent-
grandfather.
As
silent
the
film
grandfather.
style.
Plays the same.
Yep.
But rather than a flag at the end of the stage, you are digging for
Digging.
treasure. Yeah. So like this introduces the whole amulet thing, which there's really no reason for this. And I don't know if you knew, because I don't think it teaches you in the game. It's in the manual. You have to mash L and R buttons on the top of the controller, and if you do that, it throws out shells that you've gotten and charges you up. So then you can, I think, use that saw blade without getting the item. Like you can momentarily do that.
But it's like only used in that part.
Yeah, it's a little bit annoying to do. It consumes shells that you're collecting because they are helping you.
Right.
And so
it's
I
another
found
thing.
I found myself not using that really feature.
I did
at
think that
all.
was a
Yeah.
creative stage, really creative to do like the silent film thing. They even have like in silent films they put up like the text on a board.
The vibe there was cool,
Yeah.
and the old
It was like
the old
Cuphead,
style
kind of.
text.
Yeah,
absolutely.
it felt Cuphead. Even the bosses, the difficulty and I don't know, there was a Cuphead-esque feeling about it, but I think also Cuphead goes into a sepia tone at some point, or at least for some
you can play
stages,
through it in
like-
black and white.
Oh, interesting. You play through black and white. So I think what we're all at least agreeing on, might not agree on everything, is that there are so many different concepts here. And we didn't even talk much about the wasp projectiles, but that's a whole nother thing. But you've got the wasps, you've got the vehicles that you don't
its
ever
own
see.
button.
You've got the amulet, you've got the costumes, you've got the force-filled gems, and
Saw
the
blade.
speed blade, and you've got so many things that are just placed into this game. Figure it out.
Plocked right in. They plocked it right in.
Aged.
This game looks homemade. And Kenny, what you said earlier is very true, and why I thought it too. You said this feels like a PC era platformer, and it's because of how it looks. Is that true? Because that's why I think it feels like a PC game.
I think it's partly true. I think the visuals are an interesting thing to talk about, because I agree it has some of that look. I don't think it's from the visuals themselves so much, because I think if you look at the specific components, it's actually a pretty good looking game. I feel like the sprite work looks relatively good. The elements have a vibe that's not my favorite. This sort of early 90s sort of, I don't know, kiddish cartoon thing, but that is like a thing. But what got me was just how like busy and random and full the world felt.
Busy.
And it felt like it was too much. It was fruit salad, but then there were like also pieces of tomato stuck in there. And like, sure, like tomato is a fruit, but it's not, and it doesn't belong, and it doesn't look right, and it doesn't taste right, even if it is right. And I feel like that was the thing here, is like, yeah, it just, like, the worlds were designed and look strange. Like, floating islands in the sky are fine, but when they just feel random and out of place, and, like, it just felt...
Hodgepodge.
I don't know, it felt like hodgepodge.
Hodgepodge.
Yeah, it lacked direction. I don't even have the words, because I can't even describe it.
It's so hard to describe it.
No, I agree.
I think the graphical design is a choice and a taste. What I can commend them on are the colors. Like, it was vivid, bright, like, and a variety of color palette.
Blinding.
The stuff that was there popped, like
Bearish.
edges on like a lot of the visuals.
Yeah.
It committed to the cartoony bit.
Yes.
It may have been over heavy-handed, and I think it was. But again, I don't think I don't think they did the visuals poorly. I think they did them without discipline.
I just find them offensive, and I can't describe why. It's just not pleasant to look at for me.
I'm gonna have
And I think that may
tone
just be
and
more
look.
like an aesthetic thing, because this
Yeah.
has a tone, and I
Yeah.
think you just don't like
Yeah.
that tone. And I
That's
don't
probably
disagree.
true.
It's not my favorite
Same.
either. It was a very like era specific thing, and but that's separate from like how well they did the visuals, and both are kind of uncomfortable, or odd, at least. Odd, not uncomfortable for me.
Okay, people rave about the music in this game.
Yeah,
They do.
For good reason.
Well,
And I'm people. I feel like you're about to say something negative, but
let me say
it
this.
worked for me.
Before I'd gotten far into the game, I had seen people raving about the music, and so I
Okay.
already was coming in saying, okay, does it deserve the credit that it receives on the Sonic front? Well, on the music.
I know what
game.
you mean.
And I wasn't it felt lovingly done at first, but it wasn't really clicking with me until I got a little bit later in the stages, and witnessed the variety of tracks, the insanity of tracks. It's one of those games that doesn't need all this, but Tim and Jeff Fallen
Yeah.
went crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it's I think Miyamoto, one of the Nintendo guys, was like actually thought that it was on a modded SNES when they first heard it because of what
Because
they were
of the
able to
quality of the
achieve,
music.
quality of
Yeah.
the. And I get that it does sound very impressive. I don't have the trained ear for like to know if a SNES, 16-bit soundtrack is like
Sure.
above average. But this would be it. It's very, very high quality and it sounds extremely like produced in the sense that they spent lots of time on it and like tried to get a specific sound out of the console, and they did. It sounds great.
It didn't take me getting a quarter of the way through the game and realizing there was a huge variety. That intro scene where Plok is just ripping it on the harmonica, I immediately was like, they're about to do some things with music and they don't care.
Yeah, and why did that harmonica sound so good? That's not a recorded harmonica.
Right.
That's a MIDI. That's someone creating that sound.
Yeah,
like
that's what I'm
that was
saying.
crazy.
They got
So
nitty gritty on that.
these brothers know what they're doing, and I think they are known for going over the top. Like they're one of the
wonder what
ones
else
that
they
like
did.
just what's that meme about? Like there's a movie or a show. Oh, was it Tarzan? That just had the most ridiculous OST, and I think who did the music for Tarzan? Was it not the music?
Oh yeah, Phil Collins.
Yeah, it was Phil Collins.
Yeah.
Like just went hard for no
Just
reason.
like that meme of someone like the piano's on fire and then it's like playing it. It's like for no reason.
So they did Batman Forever. It's a Super Nintendo top OST
yeah, okay.
that is known for being really good. They did the fifth Echo the Dolphin game, which I don't know, but
There's
I would assume.
a fifth?
Yeah, I know. I didn't know they
What?
did that many.
I barely
What's
knew there
the
was a
fifth and
sequel.
final. So
Golly, the fifth one.
and that's just two that are connected to us a little bit, but they've done many others, and they never mail it in. They're like,
Wow.
no, if we're doing this, we're going all out. And they
I
did.
wonder. I'm just surprised that they did this game. It's because those other ones are pretty big titles, especially the Batman one, and then Plok in their discography.
This game had a lot of hype around it when it was first
Did it?
coming out. I think it was expected to be bigger than it actually ended up being.
Interesting.
For a number of reasons, but like there was a reason that even though this was a sort of random, somewhat smaller, developer in Europe, that they were able to get Nintendo to publish it for them,
Yeah,
and
like-
it was a very very promising game.
You
that they
mentioned-
were hoping was going to be a whole IP.
You mentioned Nolan Miyamoto. Like it's documented that Miyamoto expressed strong interest in working on this game when it was only half finished,
Interesting.
and was like wrote a letter claiming it was the third best platforming game that he's played
Besides
Sonic
like
and
Mario and Sonic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it didn't. It didn't end up panning out, and so within development, obviously Nintendo backed away from it. But
That is so
it's just
interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting lore for sure.
There's a lot of other interesting things about this game as well, including the brothers, the designers, kept the IP of the characters instead of having it be something that belongs to the studio, which is
Interesting.
very atypical in the game
that
world
is.
community.
I would say smart move normally.
If
But-
they would have
Sure,
done
and if
something
that
with
had
it,
if
did
that
they?
had taken off,
Right,
No,
exactly.
they wanted it to. I think they tried. I think now you can find Plok still existing, like on the internet as a webcomic these days.
Oh.
They're like,
And they own
we
that.
own this thing, and like let's still do something with it. But it's not like a game series that's continuing to go on.
That is
Well,
so fascinating.
The thing that is crazy is how hard they went with story. I know I already mentioned
Yeah,
it, guys,
like-
but like
Why?
I feel like to some degree that they started with story, and
Yeah.
that's what led all decisions. Because we've already said it was a hodgepodge of decisions. I feel like it was based off a story. They're like, they had a story, they storyboarded this game, and we're like, how do we get here? Well, we need an amulet. How do we get here? Well, we need to kill all the fleas. How do we like
Early on in the Pickford brothers' lives, they had a flea infestation in
Yeah,
their home,
and it ruined
now,
everything.
And now we get Plok.
HBO adaptation win.
If there is that webcomic series, that's the only Plok thing continuing because it wasn't a series. Even though maybe it came out to some kind of critical acclaim, it didn't continue. There's only one Plok game ever, and it's this one. If you want a copy for your home console, your Super Nintendo, it's $30 used or loose. It's $168 new, and I would have thought more.
Same. Me too.
Final thoughts.
At the end of each and every one of our episodes, we determine whether or not the game gets our vote for New Game Plus status, which is our general thumbs up or thumbs down. It does require 2/3 of the vote to swing one way or the other. Kenny, what did you think about PLOK with or without an exclamation point?
With.
Unsurprisingly, I think, it's just from our conversation, I'm a bit torn on this one. I think the game did some very novel and noteworthy things. Possibly some things that even inspired other games and future things that took notes from what this one did. And the game is mostly fun, though it also has some frustrations and difficulty. But the game design itself, the overall vision of this game is so odd. It's and I've already fought with this description, but I want to just fight with it a little bit more because it's hard to put your finger on it. If you read up on the history of this game and the studio and the folks that made it, I think some of the how this game came to be sort of bubbled up into making this game what it was. And so that's interesting. But the game itself it's just a little bit frantic or aimless or British or self-indulgent. I don't even know. I don't know what to call it because it's just hard to put my finger on, but it is a weird little game for sure. It's a notable, fairly interesting, mostly fun, weird little game. And I will give it NGP, even though it kind of confuses me. I think it's probably one of those games that got more retrospective hype than it deserved. But I had mostly fun playing it, and it does enough solid game things beyond some of the things that have been complaints for me that I think people will still enjoy it. So I'm going to say still a game worth playing regardless. And I'm sorry I meandered, but that's what this game pulled out of me because that's what this game is. Confused in GP.
I'll go next. I think you're right on a lot of those things, Kenny, especially the point of the game getting more retrospective hype. You think you said than it deserves. I definitely think that at the time of release, it probably wasn't that well loved the way that a lot of people do now. I do think this soundtrack is very impressive. I think it's really good. I think it's one of the better things about this game. I do have a really big issue with this game, however, and it's a really simple one that shouldn't be an issue with any video game, and it is that most of my time this week playing it, I kept going, what am I supposed to be doing again? And that's a big deal. With the platformer, it's usually pretty simple, and here it is to find the fleas, explore these stages, but sometimes that's not what you're doing. Still, it still felt like a huge mess. And I think Kenny was right again earlier when he said that they just added things when they had ideas without question. And yeah, they might be cool, and yeah, they might have had a lot of promise, but they're not fully realized. So I really, really, really dislike this game. I kind of wanted to like it just based on the hype that is around it, because I've heard of this game, mostly because of the soundtrack, but I cannot give this New Game Plus, not even close. No NGP.
And so the drama intensifies. We've got one NGP, we've got one no NGP, and I'll keep my answer brief. I think that Plok has almost all of the worst parts of platforming possible. Unfair obstacles, multi-hit enemies, endlessly respawning enemies, poor level design. I loathed every minute. I hated this game, and the music couldn't even make up for it. Like, this was a bad experience. There are times when developers, I imagine, ask, can we add this? Can we do this? And I think these developers and designers asked that question too often, can we? And should have asked, should we? Yeah. Because their answer was always yes to can we, and because of that, it became this convoluted mess that could have been good, but because it was not fine-tuned and because they just added so much, it became this unadulterated mess. I don't know if that works, but I hated Plok, and I'm glad to announce that it is not New Game Plus certified, but it certainly does fit into the category of weird.
Golly, maybe the most out of all of them so far.
It is like the titular Summer of Weird game in my mind at this point, because it's bizarre.
Those are our thoughts. What were yours? On our YouTube poll, 21% said yes, Plok is worth playing. 7% said no, go play something else. And 72% have never played it before.
I would think that 7% would have been higher.
Yeah, and 21% lower.
Why didn't people play this?
Many people in our community played along with this week, sent in their thoughts on the retro game of the week. Habani Gaming said it is totally fitting for this game to land in the Summer of Weird. Yeah. You run around throwing your arms and legs at enemies and targets, but you have to be careful not to leave your arms on a coat hanger, or you will only be able to throw your legs and hop around like a stump while you chase down a flag that turned out to be just a pair of underwear.
Great summary.
Also, I hope you have the manual, because the game doesn't explain that you also need to hatch all the bug eggs so you can exterminate the fleas in order to magically conjure the mystery cloth you think will be a flag. Weird. I might have enjoyed this game as a kid, but experiencing it today for the first time, all I see is an action platformer where the action isn't fun, and neither is the platforming. No NGV.
Yeah. That's true. The platforming wasn't fun. It wasn't solid. You could control it fine, was snappy enough. That's not the issue. It was more the stage.
We didn't say the handling was good. You
can
control your movement in air. You know exactly what you're doing. You have two different kind of jumps. We didn't even say that.
And that quick
too many other things to talk about.
That quick land thing where you can hit down in midair. That's great. I love that. But the stages were lame.
Man, we didn't even talk about the mechanics. That's how
the down lets you slide when you're on angles. Like, there were tons of little things like that again, might appeal to some people, but was a lot.
Gorilla Stained Bear said,
"What?
Like Berenstain Bears?
Oh, Gorilla Stain."
Fantastic graphics, top tier SNES music. I love the art design and overall look of Plok. I remember renting this multiple times as a kid because it felt like I was visiting a colorful, livid world, or living world. Sort of like how people would watch the first Avatar movie multiple times in the theater to visit the imaginary world of Pandora. Plok gets NGP because it always draws me in, although it is impossible and no one has ever completed it.
Oh, is that the consensus? I mean, it's a hard game.
It's hard and long. I looked up, actually, after you said, Kenny. So you're right. After the bosses, there is a soft checkpoint. Only if you reset the system. If you turn off your system, then it starts it over.
Okay.
What a bad
so it is on a reset, but not on a power off.
I hate
That's
them.
weird, and that's bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey Brother said Plok is a game that got lost in the 90s fad of colorful mascot platform games.
Yes.
However, there is definitely enough here to separate it from the rest. The style is bright and colorful, but is broken up by a unique black and white flashback section, something I can't recall in any other game. The attack mechanism involves throwing your body parts at enemies until you hop around as a stump. There are various vehicles for Plok to use that break up the gameplay. The soundtrack is great, the controls are fluid, and the platforming is fun. The major downside that will put most people off is the difficulty that stems from objects appearing without being able to react to them, and an unforgiving continue system. If you can get over this, though, Plok is definitely a unique game that is worth playing.
No one will get over that, though. Those are big deals.
It's like they cut our legs out from under us and then tell us to get over it.
And then threw them at us.
Two other just quick thoughts. One from Flumbus. The logs roll uphill, no NGP.
Yeah, what?
And KL31 said, my 3-year-old son liked the storyline and colors. He thought Plok was funny, too. I liked turning the game off when it was his bedtime.
Dang, okay, so we're not crazy. I'm hearing a lot
told
of
you it's for kids.
distaste.
But there is
well,
some
that easy
mix.
mode for sure is. Like, the easy mode kind of is like, it looks and feels like a baby game.
I think in the kids mode, the enemies take less hits, and can you die?
They're like one shot. It's easy. Yeah, it really is easy. I mean, I'll give them that.
For now, we're going to set aside Plok. That was randomly selected because we are not randomly selecting the next retro game of the week because it is a Patreon poll.
Can I say something?
Summertime.
I hope it's not weird. I hope it's amazing. I hope it's like something I know of and it's amazing.
It's been a tough summer, boys.
I hope it's both weird and amazing.
Okay.
I don't want us to derail the theme.
Unfortunately, this is the last pool party of the summer. Sorry, this is the last Patreon pool of the summer pool party. However, we'll go ahead and let you know, it's no secret. We will be having a hot tub after party for producers only.
Even smaller pool. So y'all could really get us
That's
to
what a
play
hot tub
something weird.
So
it's just a smaller pool with bubbles.
you certainly don't have to, but if you would like to be a part of the hot tub after party, then you can either join at the producer or director level. Hey, we're not stopping you. And you can enter in for the smallest pool we'll ever do.
I love that that's what we called it.
Hot tub after party.
That's so weird.
That's so good. All right. Stats by Shane.
Stats by Shane.
That's by Shane.
The stats are somewhat the same. The console, actually, I think maybe it's been this way. PS2 at 18.8%.
It's been up there. I want to say PC went up above it at one point.
I think PC was winning.
I thought it was as well. PC is second at 16.8%.
Okay.
I think it's the same games probably that they're trying to get us.
And then nothing else is really close. Let's talk about games. It was actually opposite. First was second and second was first yesterday, but a few more entries came in. And so at 12 entries.
Okay. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
Holy.
Kirby's Dream Course.
Oh, that must be so cursed or something. I don't even know what that is.
Well, yeah, I don't want to play another Kirby game unless there's something special about it.
Oh, yeah, you're a Kirby hater.
Everything about Kirby is special.
12 entries is kind of... is that a record? That's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a
lot.
record in recent years.
Yeah.
Remember, they used to come together. Now they hate each other.
Now they don't work together, and we end up playing... Well, Plok was random, but...
Second most, at 9 entries, is The Guardian Legend.
That sounds familiar, but there's no way that is something I know of.
Just came into third overnight, but at 7 entries, System Shock 2.
Oh, that one's actually a good game.
Also up there is both Dark Cloud and Majora's Mask, Nolan.
Hey, yeah, that is a weird game. Majora's Mask, it's very weird.
If you want a few more weird, Hey Brother entered Chicken Shift for the arcade.
Okay, there's an F in there.
Cecil has 2 Yu-Gi-Oh games that they want us to play. And I don't want to say this, but Poop McFart has Toe Jam and Earl 3 that they want us to play.
Of course, the person who submitted a Toe Jam and Earl game is Poop McFart. Thanks for that one.
Thank you for all of your submissions. Randomizing now. It has been a long time since the community has been able to come together and actually get a game selected.
Wow.
Back in the day, when there were a lot less entries, there was camaraderie, there was teamwork, there was unity. Now there's just been strife and division.
Betrayal.
Betrayal and backstabbing. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people were able to get their game selected. 8.
Right, little teamwork.
It's usually 1, maybe 2.
Right.
But the randomizer gods smiled on you.
Wow.
And I think, guys, it is going to continue the summer of weird.
Okay.
Because it is a 1994 miniature golf video game.
Okay.
For
I'm there.
the Super Nintendo.
I'm there.
Where players control a pink spherical character named Kirby through launching him through a series of golf courses into a golf hole. That's why it's called what it is. It's
I'm
Kirby's
there.
Dream Course.
Oh no. You got to play a
I'm
Kirby game,
excited.
Dustin.
Now, this is going to be my favorite Kirby game.
Probably, which is so weird. That's the case.
Playing golf with Kirby into holes and on courses?
See, that
That's gonna
doesn't
be
sound
amazing.
hype to me.
Oh.
That sounds so bad.
Sounds amazing. It was submitted by Unbelievable, Dan, Tins, Garlisle, Harold, Timothy T, Jessica, and KL31. KL31? KL31 was one of the two that also submitted Power Blade. You need to go to the
eating
lottery
good.
right now. You need
Yeah,
to
go
go to
get
the
a
lottery.
ticket.
You're winning.
Thank you
crazy.
for submitting the game. Thank you, everyone, for playing along with us on this summer pool party. I think we're continuing the summer of weird with Kirby's Dream Course. Find a copy, play it along with us this next week.
Join us in Discord, would you? Go to discord.gg/newgameplus.
I feel like we already listed half our producers in pointing out people who suggested this game, but we want to say a thank you to all of you who support us on patreon.com anyhow, including our large list of producer-level supporters: Alex, Alias X, Amarlian, Antonin, Arlen, Yuki, Ben, Craig, Dustin's 5 o'clock, Shadow, Garlisle, Guardian, Cade, Hallex, Harold, Hey Brother, J. Robert, Jake, Jordan, Joey, Justified, Justin, Clint, Levi, Marcus, Maxima, Megatroid, Miss Muso, Not Enough Dog, Sajin, Sasser, Shane, Shauna, Snigmatic, Stephen Fox, Psychomantis, Tins, The Kentucky Kid, Thomas Turtle, Unbelievable, and Zion. Of course, a huge shout out to our director level supporters: Brojim, Super Hypered, Siegfried, and Scotty. We throw all of our limbs into your lap. Love y'all. And to our newest patrons, those who are joining us for the first time, y'all get a shout out as well, including the 16-bit Big Boss, Systematic, and Francesinha Especial con Batata.
Nice one, Kenny.
Yeah, best I could do
sounds
with whatever
delicious.
that name is.
You can follow us on our social media: Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, TikTok, and YouTube. The links are in the show notes. Listen directly on any podcast provider of your choice. Make sure you subscribe so that you're the first to get new NGP episodes. And while you're at it, please leave a kind rating and review. Our episode artwork was created by our friend Dave. Our video episode was edited by our friend Dylan. Our audio episode was edited and produced by our friend Dan Willett. Join us next week as we play Kirby's Dream Course. Until then, I'm still left hand.
I'm still right foot.
I'm Bill Clinton.
And this has been New Game Plus.